Hey guys, Usernaym again with a short tutorial on officers' talents and skills. I got a request by this guy Jonathan Safir asking me to make a video for officer talents. So this one is for you. Now, I'll try to cover every single officer. Right, I don't have the nun, and I don't like her anyway. So this might get a little long-winded. I hope you bear with me. Okay, I'll start with Linda. Linda, there's a few ways you can do it, right? Some people use her as their main jungler. For me, I don't, because when I started out, I actually use Katherine as my jungler. And even now, I don't use her as a jungler. I use her more for tanks. Now, the reason for this is because I actually attack other troops, other cities as well. And so jungler is specifically for behemoths. So personally, I feel it's a waste to put jungler on Linda, because behemoths are nice and fun and all, but attacking cities is actually more fun for me anyway. So for Linda, I actually put her on tank. Now, when we talk about tanks, it really depends on whether or not you have enough tanks in your arsenal to put 100% tanks in your Linda march. So okay, let's talk about this for a short while. Now let's look at my Linda march, right? I have a march size of about 200,000 right now, right? So if I have 200,000 tanks, and when I attack someone else with 200,000 tanks in my entire march, then yes, sure, great, fine, right? Putting tanks on Linda makes sense because then you maximize your benefit, right? It doesn't make sense if you can only fill like 30% of your march with tanks, and then you got to fill in the rest with like infantry or artillery or whatever. So that doesn't make sense. So put tanks if you have enough tanks to fill most or one entire march on your own. Okay, and this also helps with Normandy arena, of course, because you get to use 100% tanks with that. Okay, so that's tanks. Now, skill is great with Linda because this maximizes your damage with skills, right? And Linda, as you all know, is the easiest way to get the cards for Linda, and she's the first person that you get to general. So skills make sense for Linda. Okay, so if you have enough tanks, go with tanks. If you don't have enough tanks, go with skills. Or if you prefer to just use Linda for behemoths and invaders, then yeah, sure, use her as jungler. Okay, so this is how I think of it. Now, talking about skills, how I would raise it is, generally speaking, I would raise this one for any officer for that matter. I would raise this one first to 5, and then you need the rest. So this is for tanks. So you raise this because this is tank specific, right? So raise this if you have many tanks, else go slow. This one, use this if you're using jungler for Linda, else go slow. And this is of course if you're using skill. So I will max this one first, and then either one of this depending on which talent tree you use her for. Okay, so that's Linda. Wow, it's already 4 minutes, so I'll try to speed by the rest. Now, Doireann, I use Doireann for siege, because I do a lot of my tiers commander, right, and I get a lot of what you call that, get a lot of cards, right, for Doireann. So for me, I put Doireann as depending on my season, right? If I intend to use Doireann for city attacks often, then I actually do a reset and I will switch her to siege. Else, personally, I would leave her at attack by default, because this one is kind of an all-purpose talent tree. And for me, general, this this only works for rallies really, personally. If you're not holding a lot of rallies, then I think it's not really useful. In this particular case, because I happen to be at level 50, and so these 1, 2 and 3 are pretty general purpose, right? It's not just for rallies, so they give pretty good bonuses, so I put them up to here. I would use this, and yep, I would definitely get these two as well. It's pretty good. I wouldn't use this, right? I'll probably stop at level 60. The limit is level 60 anyway, so yeah, these two would be pretty good. As for the rest that are rally specific, I feel it's a bit of a waste, because how often do you initiate rallies against open field? I believe this is probably good for open field, or what you call it, for like government or level 2 level 3 cities, and not player cities, because if you were to attack player cities, you use siege, obviously, right? So my recommendation, attack, then general. If you attack other players a lot, then you siege. Okay. As for skills, skills definitely do this first. Well, it's a toss up, right? Like I said earlier, I generally like to raise this to level 5, because this is damn freaking good, right? Damage increase 30%, defense increase, attack increase. These are damn good skills. Second would be, of course, this, because you know there's only 3 that can increase capacity, which is Doireann, Jeanne and Chloe. So depending which one you get first, I like to raise the capacity up, and then these two, whichever you prefer. Okay. Moving on to Evelyn. Evelyn is pretty straightforward. Go for support. Definitely don't waste your talents with Gatherer. This was accidental. Put her as support first, and then I'll follow up with infantry. Skills, obviously max this one out first, because it's your healer, and I would go with I'll go with this one second, right? So first, second, third, fourth. Maria is an anti-tank. So if you watch my Normandy video, you will know that, you know, for me, I see each individual officer as having a specific bias for a certain kind of troop, right? So for Maria, you can see over here she's anti-tank. You can identify from here that, you know, she's a specialist with tank destroyers. So for me, talents, I'll raise her either anti-tank or attack. Now in this case, I use attack because I like her as my multi-purpose what you call that, a multi-purpose officer. But there's no real correct or wrong answer here. It's either anti-tank or attack, right? You know, some people like to put her as garrison, because, you know, she's one of a few officers that can do garrison, right? So, you know, Grace and Maria, personally I think it's a waste, because how often do you get attacked, right? Unless unfortunately you're one of those people who are quite unlucky, or you like to stir trouble and you get attacked all the time, then yeah, sure, put her as a garrison together with Grace. Else I'm the one that does more attacking, so clearly I do anti-tank and attack. Okay. Skills wise, I would raise again this one first. I would do this one second, third. Actually no, first, second, third, fourth. That would be my sequence. Okay, coming to Riven. Riven is infantry, so obviously talents, infantry first, then siege. Siege skill, it really depends, because at this low level, you know, it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, so raise infantry. Skills wise, this one first. I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how often you attack other people with Riven. Okay. Angelica is infantry. right? So now it depends for you whether you want to use it, who do you want to use as your jungler. I would only pick one jungler because you can only host one rally at a time anyway. So if you're using Cat as your jungler, then obviously you can default to her as infantry. For me, I use Angelica as my jungler. So after I've maxed out jungler, I follow up with infantry. Mobility as a talent tree is really a waste of time, really. So I don't bother with mobility. Okay. Now, skills wise, again, because I use Angelica as my jungler, so I raise this one first, and then this one second, and either one of this. I will probably do this one first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, whichever, right? Depending on how you want to use her. Okay, moving on to Jessica. Jessica's anti-tank. So obviously anti-tank first, and skill second. You know I don't care about Garrison. Ranks and skills. So I will raise this one to maximum first. The multiplier is really quite high, so it's pretty cool. I would do 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this was a mistake back then. I thought Garrison was important. Unfortunately, you can't reset a skill point, so be very careful with this. Okay, so where was I? I was Jessica and Lilith. Lilith's anti-tank. Oh yeah, so Lilith I use as my second jungler. Why do I do that? I can't remember. I think I use this as when I want to do I remember now. So at that time I wanted to push Mightiest Commander, so I had two jungler slots so I can more what you call it, kill invaders more effectively. In fact, looking at this now, I would just reset to anti-tank. Skills, I would max this on first because you know the multiplier is insane. I'll probably put this one second, and third, then fourth. Cat. If you don't already know, you can only get cat cards by paying for it, right? You can use your general purpose ones. So for this reason, if you don't intend to spend a lot of money with cat, then I wouldn't use her that much. I started off her as junglers, but then I'm switching them now to tanks. And skills wise, I just raise this for the rage damage. If you're using her as a jungler, then of course raise this one first, else I would do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving on to Grace. Grace obviously, so I keep one Garrison, which is Grace, and I hardly use Grace to lead any attacks anyway, so Grace to me is one of the pretty faces that I don't really use for anything. So I put her on Garrison, raise her to level 44, and raise some of her skills when I have bonus or spare what you call that, cards. Also, I don't really care that much. Pick a choice. Okay. Chloe is very hard to get, and she would be really good, when you maximize her. So you can use her as siege or you can use her as attack. By the time you get Chloe, you probably have, like for me, I have Linda, Doireann. These are my major hard hitters, so I don't have enough for Chloe yet, which is why I'm not putting her as siege. I'm using her as attack. Else, if you have a lot of experience and cards for Chloe, by all means put her as siege because her overall skills are pretty insane. So sequence wise, I would use this first, capacity, because I use her still as my junior officers. So as you know, junior officers don't actually get talents applied. If you did not know that, then make sure you remember this now. If you are a junior officer, you only have skills applied. So I would raise this one to 5 first for the capacity, and then I would second this. So 1 2, I would do 1 2 3 4. That would be my sequence. Okay. Now, not forgetting also Marjorie and Jeanne. I'll talk about Marjorie first. So Marjorie obviously raised as gatherer. After gatherer, I will raise mobility, because I wouldn't use Marjorie in any kind of attacks really. So I wouldn't bother with tanks. I'll start with gatherer. Secondary will be mobility. And skills wise, I guess nothing to talk about. I would raise this one to 5. After that, really doesn't matter. Okay, so that's Marjorie. Jeanne is actually one of my favorites actually. Talent wise is pretty obvious, right? Raise her as gatherer. After that, up to you. I would just use support, not that it matters. Skills wise, 100% raise this one to max first. Capacity of the troops by 10%. After that, gathering master. Yeah, then you can raise the rest, right? I would still raise this first if you are able. Now, a note on Jeanne and Chloe and Doireann. So straying a little bit from the topic. So if you are actually joining, so now okay, let's talk about behemoths for a short while. If you're organizing a rally for a behemoth, right? You know that your officers' talents and skills apply. So definitely for your senior officer, use a jungler, and for your junior officer, use an officer that has bonuses for behemoths, right? So in my case, I actually use I've what you call that. I can't open my preset right now, but I actually use my jungler first. So Angelica as my senior, and then Linda as my junior, because she has extra damage to behemoths. Okay, so that's me if you organize a rally. If you are joining a rally, what you want to do is you want to maximize your troops that are sent over, and because your officers' talents and skills, they don't apply if you're joining someone else, right? Only the organizers officers matter. Okay, so another thing to note is which officers they are using. So in this case, you can see that they are using Linda and Evelyn, right? So which means Linda is tank strong and Evelyn is infantry strong. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your march is made out of infantry and tanks, right? To maximize the damage on that. And if it's, let's say, this Pauna, so it's infantry, and well, Chloe is multi-purpose, so you can probably put more tanks, not infantry. Linda is tanks, you can put more tanks, and maybe a few others as a mix. Okay, now again, if you're joining another rally, only your troops matter. Your talents and skills do not apply. So what I do is, when I join, I have Doireann as my senior officer, right, for the troop count as well as for the capacity. Remember that Doireann has a capacity increase. And for my junior officer, I will actually use Jeanne, because again, troop capacity has 10% over here, and I don't yet have extra troop capacity over here. So if you don't have Chloe at max yet, use Jeanne. So Doireann as a senior, Jeanne as a junior. By this alone, you get a bonus of up to 25% troop increase. So when you send your maximum march over here in your rally, then of course you get to deal a bigger percentage of the damage and better rewards for you. Okay. Okay, so I guess that's about it with regards to officers. I hope this helped. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop a comment over on YouTube, or if you're in zone 15, by all means ask any one of us. Good luck and happy playing.